Hello, good evening, everyone. Happy weekend. This is the day 8 of the professional 1 month free professional diploma training in human rights and social justice. Right? Free 1 month professional diploma training course is a course being provided by the Institute of Global Peace and Conflict Management. Can you hear me? Let me put on my mic to amplify my voice. You can hear me well. Hello, can you hear me now? Good evening, everyone. Happy weekend. We are in the day 8 of the 1 month free professional diploma training course in human rights and social justice. The free 1 month professional diploma training is a course being provided by the Institute of Global Peace and Conflict Management. We have been providing this kind of training for several months now, starting since July this year, and we are on it. We have done a training in several courses like um, emotional intelligence, peace education, peace and conflict management, peace and sustainable development, alternative dispute resolution, and we are now doing social justice, human rights. So we want to welcome all our participants who have been joining across the globe. And today, I mean, especially welcome Paul Uka, who has been consistent in participating and joining. Always first to join from Lagos, Nigeria. We have Mr. Jacob Ifom from Nigeria. We have Christina Coates from Uganda. We have Alice Nabi from Kenya. We have Ayodele from Nigeria. We have Ada Williams from Lokoja, Nigeria. We have Rabo Bala Mohammed from Nasarawa, Nigeria. We have Bantu Chike from Botswana. We have Matthew from Nigeria, and we have Adraman Hamza from Ethiopia. We have Godwin George and several others joining. Ellen Felix Jordan from Uganda also has joined us, and several other people are joining from across the countries in Africa. We have Mr. Stanley from Zambia, Tembo from Zambia. That's cute. So we have Kang Portos from Cameroon. So I want to acknowledge the presence of every one of you that is joining us for today's training. It has been a wonderful journey in since we started this training, and I want to make this quick announcement before we proceed. For those of you that did training in peace and conflict management, the examination is going to come up tomorrow by 9 p.m. That is after tomorrow's evening training. You can go ahead and take your exams in peace and conflict management by 9 p.m. So if you are for that exams, get ready and be part of it. And then I also want to say that we have released a flyer seeking for countries representatives. We have some position like up to 4 or 5 or 6 to be occupied in each of the countries we are targeting to have a representation there. So we have, I think, up to 16 countries in Africa, and I think there's one that is not on the flyer. Well, there are two that are not on the flyer. One from Africa, that is Democratic Republic of Congo, and I think we still allow them to participate since we are having conflict in those countries. We need to have this program there. India, who also asked us for that, and we have given him the go ahead to also apply so that we have the program in India as well. So we are hoping that you people, those of you that are qualified, we apply to be part of uh, the program in your country. Program in your country. So do way to, you know, visit our page, our Facebook page, our YouTube page. I think the application is there so that you can be part of those that want to represent the institute in your country. You can apply. We have several positions. You can apply like country representative, that is coordinator, deputy coordinator, national training, membership mobilization, and then several other positions are open up for you to grab. But there are conditions, so try to fulfill the conditions so that you will not be denied the opportunity. All right. Um, uh, so that you will not be denied the opportunity. So just try as much as possible to fulfill the condition, most especially and most importantly, to be a member of the institute. If you are not a member of the institute, it's one of the major um, barriers for you to represent us in your country. So I don't think it costs much to be a member. It depends on how you look at it, but it's not much. It's a matter of sacrifice to become a member and then have opportunity to represent the institute and then make impacts in your country. I know you are making impacts in your country in one way or the other, but it's in peace now, and peace is very, very paramount for all of us. So I think, and then the application closes on the 28th, and then we're going to have a screening on the 31st. And those that we pass the screening, we train them second week of January, and by third week of January, they should be inducted and they're on board for them to continue with the activities of the institute in their country. And then we'll further explore other measures to get the institute registered in your own country of residence. Let's see how things goes. So we want those of you that are interested to apply to be part of that of this team to make sure that we get the message of global peace across nations of the world. So thank you very much for being part of this amazing institution, either as a participant and now opportunity for you to also contribute in your own country to bring out the institution to bear in your own country. So these are the opportunities that are coming up. So opportunities will be coming up. By the time we have representatives in the country, in your own country, we'll begin to seal for something very, very big, right? To get members of the institute appointed as ambassadors of their own countries or to represent their countries. And I think that would be the beauty of the whole stuff. Do you understand? Where you have members of the institute being appointed as ambassadors, high commissioners, um, where they form part of the envoy, special envoys. I think that would be the amazing thing that we want to see happen in this institution. You understand? So we can make a passionate appeal for government and authorities to make sure that certain percent of ambassadorial positions are allocated for the members of the institute. And I think is something we can achieve if we continue to do what we are doing and make the impacts we are making and make the world see what we are doing. And I think when we make demand for this, I think we will not be denied such opportunity. But we must get our influence right and we must get our research right. All right. So thank you very much for being part of this amazing team. All right. So thank you. So today I want us to look at something quickly. Today we'll be looking at uh, the climate change or climate justice and environmental rights. Climate what? Climate climate change and what? Environmental rights. So we're going to look at climate justice and environmental rights. Right? Um, the issue of climate change is a very serious issue that has made leaders of the world, of governments of different countries to sign a Paris Agreement seeking on how we can reduce the impact of climate change and, of course, take actions to see that greenhouse gases emissions are being reduced to make sure that life is worth living because we have seen devastating impact of climate change around the world. Talk about the sea rise and then also talk about the very harsh weather conditions, talk about weather events that occurs around the globe. When you talk about hurricanes, tsunamis, and cyclones that are destroying lives, talk about strong winds, storms that are coming, destroying houses, destroying farmlands, destroying trees, destroying even lives, human lives, and several other effects that we are experiencing as a result of climate change. So this has been an issue on there has been an issue that is on the lips of every leader of the world, and they have been conversing to see how we get this thing addressed, incorporating government leaders, private institutional leaders, and get everybody on board to make sure that the impacts of climate change are being reduced. But we are talking about justice, climate justice, because we need justice because there are institutions, there are governments that have benefited so much from developmental manufacturing activities that have aggravated the impact of climate change. And of course, we are agitating, or rather, in the Paris Agreement says that countries who have benefited so much from developmental initiatives that contributed so massively a climate change impact should pay more. And we are waiting to see that happen. Do you understand? To make sure that our climate is safe for all of us to live in. and not just all of us, the biodiversity not to be destroyed as a result of climate change. Do you understand? So climate change impact is a very serious matter, and it has implications on the human rights. Do you understand? And it is important that we discuss it. All right. So human rights implications of climate change. All right. Human rights implications of what climate change. Human rights implications of climate change. Human rights implications of climate change. Human rights implications of what? Climate change. So this is one of the topics we're going to see today. So climate change is not just an environmental issue. Far be it. It affects more than the environment. All right. It poses significant threats to the realization of human rights. It affects your rights as well. It affects the rights of people who are experiencing the impacts of climate change. And how does the climate change impact human rights? Do you understand? Impacts your right, impacts my rights. So when you look at issues like extreme weather events, like sea level rise and then food insecurity, you can discover that these things directly or indirectly, affect the rights to live, right? Your right to life is being affected by the impact of this climate change. All right. Talk about health. Your health is also affected. Food supply is affected. A lot of people are living um below the poverty level. They cannot even afford food to eat. Do you understand? Some people hardly can see food to eat. The impact of climate change and several other factors contributing to the high cost of food products. Do you understand? So all of these are affecting us, all right? So it affects water scarcity, causing climate, causing climate or environmental related conflicts. Do you understand? So it's affecting us, and of course, when people are being threatened as a result of no water to feed, to drink, or to give their animals, they move, and as they move, crashes here and there, and then it causes conflicts. You understand? Talk about housing. Climate impacts are destroying houses. There's one community in the US that I saw the last time, I think last year or so. The whole village was destroyed as a result of hurricanes. Do you understand? No life was lost because it was, forecast, and people were evacuated, but the house did not survive. All the houses were destroyed. There was no one single roof that was standing on any house. Do you understand? So this is what we're talking about here. So housing, is being threatened, and then self-determination, because as a result of environmental hazard or environmental impact, people are being rendered homeless. I get a point. People are on the streets. Some, as a result of that, they cannot afford the money to even rebuild. You understand? And so several factors. And if government intervene, many people will suffer the impact and they remain in that stranded situation. So these are the issues that we're talking about here. You understand? So you can see that climate change is not just affecting the environment alone, it affected, or it had effects on your rights directly. Do you understand? And indirectly is affecting you. They threaten your life. You understand? When the impacts like sandstorm comes, they kill people. You understand? Hurricanes kill if you are not being evacuated and it caught you in a place where it is to fall or where it's to take place, you'll be killed. You understand? Because it comes with several issues. You understand? Strong winds, rainfalls, and several other things. Do you understand? Massive destruction. You saw what happened in Brazil, you saw what happened in US, you saw what happened in Dubai. Do you understand? So many other places facing climate change. So the other time was India, the other time was Pakistan. Do you understand? We have been seeing some of these things, even in our country, Nigeria, here in some African countries, we have seen the impacts of climate change, most especially on the issue of flooding and all of that. You see what happened in Borno or recent, do you understand? So all of these things are impacts of climate change, and they affect the lives of people. They affect the lives of animals and even other other in other uh, living organism within the ecosystem. Do you understand? So it affects every every season. So this is what is happening. So when we're talking about climate change, we're not just talking about the impact that is being experienced on the environment, but what about your rights? It threatens the realization of the human rights. Again, I'm point out. So let's look at human rights framework. We have discussed this before, but Universal Declaration of Human Rights, um, the UDHR, recognizes fundamental rights that climate change endangers. And what are those rights? Including the rights to life, health, and an adequate standard of living. Okay, so supposed to live a good life, a quality life, right? But sometimes the impact of this climate change deny us. Um, when I was in Jigawa some times ago, I think that was in 2020 or so, while we were battling with the impacts of COVID-19 at that time, we at the same time climate change impact also affecting the farmland, the whole of rice farmers in Jigawa, in KB State at that time. Water creep everywhere. You know, all the farm produce of farmlands will sweep away by water and everything. I get a point now. So a lot of people who spend money to cultivate rice and even yam could not produce anything because water swept everything away. I get a point now. So all these are the things. So this reduce the quality of life that even the local people can, the rural people can live. I get a point now because they depend on their food produce, their subsistence what farm producers, and of course they eat from their farm produce. And of course, when these things like this happen, how do you expect them to survive? I get a point now. So it reduces the standard of living, of course. And because when people are being displaced as a result of the impacts of climate change, what happens? They run from their houses and then either they stay in camps. Do you understand? And they become refugees or internally displaced persons in their own country as a result of the impacts of climate change. So this is what we're talking about here. All right. So standard of living of the people is also being affected. All right. So international conventions like International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, some of those things are captured in the Declaration. International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights have been covered. Then the Paris Agreement that was signed in 2015 acknowledges the need to consider human rights in climate actions. Do you understand? So these are the things. So rights impacted by climate change. Let's look at some of the rights that are being impacted. I have mentioned some, but let's look at how this impact is being considered. So rights to life. So increase frequency of extreme weather events, right? Like hurricanes, floods, drought leads to loss of lives. Do you understand? It also leads to mass destruction of biodiversity, and of course, rising temperature and heat waves contribute to health risk and mortality because some people die as a result of heat waves. Do you understand? Heat waves. Some people cannot survive heat. When you go to, let me give one example. If you go to northern Nigeria, for instance, now, when you go to northern Nigeria during the heat period, just if we're living in the north, if okay, for those of you online here for today in this class now, I'm giving you an assignment. Just take it as, consider it as an opportunity for you to observe during the heat period and maybe the period we are in now. The period we are in now is a time period, the weather somehow is harsh, but it's cold. Again, now. So monitor from now, and then from February next year, March, April, and May. Just take the statistics of people. Just take a statistics of people that die within this period. Do you understand? So you could discover that people die in heat period more than in this period that we are in now and the raining period. Do you understand? Because heat waves. Do you understand? And you know, in northern part of Nigeria, many places we don't have um, trees like to shade people from the heat. Do you understand? So, and then we don't have constant electricity where people can be using other artificial ventilated this thing. So it's issue. I get the point now. So these are the issue, but it's also key seriously. So you can take the statistics, you discover that in the north they don't keep dead bodies, but just take a statistic. If you can go and ask the people who keep the graveyards, they will tell you the different this thing I'm talking about. They will confirm what I'm talking about to you. Do you understand? Yeah, they'll confirm it to you. So right to health. So spread of diseases. Yes, for example, malaria due to changing climate conditions. Yes, like some of these climate change issues, they cause what we call communicable diseases, right? Where diseases are being transferred easily. You understand? Through different means, right? It can be communicated through what the mosquito bites, and then also air pollutions and waterborne illnesses and worsen health outcomes, in those periods. So the right to health is also being threatened as a result of the impact of climate change. I get a point now, so it is there. Then we'll talk about rights to water and sanitation. Rights to what? Water and sanitation. So water scarcity caused by droughts, all right, glacial melting, and changes in rainfall patterns also affect the rights of the people. Do you understand? Yeah, when there's no water to drink or potable water to drink, what do you think will happen? What do you think will happen? You cannot survive without water. Do you understand? You need water, and where such water is not obtainable, you see people tends to move, and as they move, competition setting, strife setting, and several other things that causes people's right? And then contamination of fresh water sources during floods. Do you understand? When flood is coming, the original um, and fresh water sources are being contaminated because when flooding is coming, packs everything, feces, pack everything, every dirt you see around, they pack and then destroy the water. All these rubbers and disposable containers are being carried along, and several other wasted materials, refuse are being packed here going on. So it contaminates the freshwater sources. Do you understand? So rights to food, rights to food, right? Climate change disrupt food supply chain. Do you understand? It disrupts food supply chain and affect the rights of the people. Do you understand? The right of people enjoy food. Who doesn't like food here? We all eat, right? So disruption of agriculture due to what? Uh, droughts, floods, and soil degradation affect food production and security. Of course, like I gave you example of what happened in 2020 in Jigawa State and in Kebbi State at that time. Several farmlands were swept away, and of course, the people were rendered, you know, they were not just rendered to live in hunger, but also poverty. You understand? Because some of them produce those their small produce, and of course sell them and make some money and take care of other things and keep the remaining one for food consumption. And of course, this thing was what we so it was not an easy stuff on them. It was a serious issue. I get a point now. And that no amount of intervention from government can reduce the impact of what the people were going through. They understand. So these are the issues. You understand? So let's look at rights to adequate housing. So sea level rise and natural disasters displace millions, of course, leading to homelessness. So some people, like I told you, the example of the community I saw in US. I think one of the residents that was interviewed, the person said that for several years they have lived in that community. They have not had such experience before, and it was so shocking to them that no house was standing. The house, over 2,000 houses in that community, no one was standing. No one was standing. No roof. I mean, no roof was standing. The building, the structure was still, the block was still standing, but the roofing, no one was standing. I get a point now. Everything was removed by the strong winds that follow the hurricanes and all of that. So it happens like that. You understand? So and many people were rendered homeless, and some of them, because of evacuation, they were kept in camps and all of that. And then maybe before they can, government intervention, they build and return back home. But you can see a lot of things were destroyed. Some people, businesses were destroyed. I get that point now. So these are the issues. So climate-induced migration creates new vulnerabilities for refugees and displaced populations. I get the point now. So because some of these things cause people to migrate. Because some people, when the impact of that climate change happen and they survive it, they wouldn't want to be in that place again. Do you understand? Some move, and as they move, some of these things cause crisis. Right? So rights to self-determination, indigenous peoples and island nations face threats to their cultural heritage and sovereignty. Small island developing states risk losing entire territories to rising sea. I get a point now. So when they see, Iceland normally are there inside the rivers. Do you understand? Water bodies surround them. What we're saying here is that when the sea rise level is high, or the level of rise is very high, it affects it affects I get a point. It affects the all those Iceland. I get a point now. Those Iceland, they can destroy them, and then of course the people there may be also swept away. I get a point now. So it's affecting. So vulnerable populations, so indigenous people depends on natural ecosystems. There's lots of traditional lands and cultural practices. So it makes them so vulnerable. When they say women and children increase vulnerability due to existing inequalities. Women often bear disproportionate burdens in agricultural and caregiving roles when the issue of climate change strikes. You understand? Elderly and disabled so struggle to adapt to sudden environmental changes or evacuation during disasters. Do you understand? So even when evacuation do happen quickly. So and of course the elderly people do struggle to meet up. I get a point now. Except if the evacuation is being done earlier before the event begins. So if the event um, comes shortly later after people have been evacuated, that's how they can be able to. But when it starts before evacuation can take place, then I'm telling you that they will not survive it. Many elderly people do die as a result of this event. So low income communities, limited resources for resilience and adaptation. When it happens, communities that are not earning much suffers a lot. Again, a point on. So when disasters strike, it's possible that people who are well to do can survive it. They can bounce back easily. But those that are not well to do, they face the impact of it. So I get the point on. They are being rendered into poverty. That is when they were trying to survive, but now with this negative impact, it renders them into deep poverty. I get a point now. So it affects them totally as a people. So, and coming back, bouncing back is not easy. I get a point now. It's not easy. It's not easy. Legal and ethical responsibilities. All right, states obligations. So one of the responsibilities of the states when it comes to the issue of climate change and the impact of it as regards to human rights is mitigation. We have to reduce greenhouse gases emissions to prevent further harm. And I think that is what Paris Agreement is basically focusing on, so that we can reduce the impact of these greenhouses. And so all manufacturing activities that has to do with the use of fossil fuel and all of those things, or fuel, should be reduced, or and that is what we're talking about here. And that's why many developing or developed nations rather are now changing their car to electric cars and all of that. I get a point now. I think that is the best way to go if we must survive these events that are occurring around the world. The adaptation. So one of the role and the responsibilities and the ethical requirements of the state is to adapt, implementation uh, measures or implement measures to protect vulnerable populations from climate impact. So measures must be put in place to make sure that those that are vulnerable and those that are, 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 are are prompt to disaster are being protected. And one of the way you can prevent, the best prevention measure is evacuation in any presence of threat. Again, point on is to evacuate the people being prompt to any form of disaster whatsoever. Again, point out whether it's be it volcanoes, eruptions, or any of those disasters, people must be evacuated. And that's why government must put in place measures and tools to detect this impact, forecasting. I get a point now to make sure that you know weather related event that will harm the people, and you take people out of harm's way and give them safety. So it's the work of government to make sure that people are being protected. I get a point now. So any government that relax and this kind of event happen and kill people, that government is an irresponsible government. I get a point now. So it's very important. So international cooperation. So share technology, resources, and knowledge to support global climate action. So most international organizations and corporations that are deep in technological development must contribute to share that technology and share the profit they make from it, and of course, and then the knowledge to support the mitigation. All right, the control of global climate impacts. Do you understand? So very important. Then let's look at corporate responsibilities, because it's not just government that is saddled with the responsibility to do something. Even private institutions are also expected to do something, right? So you own a private organization that is producing products, or the process of production is contributing to the impact of climate change. What are you expected to do? You are also expected to, carry out some social, corporate social responsibilities. Again, a point on. So business must adopt sustainable practices to reduce their carbon footprints. Very, very important. All right. So it's not just government. Many of these activities and some of these impacts are being uh, contributed as a result of the production uh, activities carried out by the private institution. I get a point now. So accountability for environmental damages and human rights violations. So they must be accountable for environmental damage and, of course, abusing and violating the human rights of the people. So this corporate institution must take responsibility for these issues whenever they occur. So ethical consideration. So intergenerational justice. So protecting the rights of future generations, right? So whatever we do, we must ensure that the future generations are being protected. It's not just we, it's not just about us, right? When we talk about sustainable development, we say that the ability for us to meet our own need without compromising the needs of the future generation. So when we are making effort to address the climate change that affect us and also to protect our future generation, then we are in for good. All right. So equity, ensuring climate policies do not exacerbate existing inequalities. All right. So let the impact of climate change not just entrench the inequality that is in existence, but also to reduce and promote equality as much as possible and equity where necessary. Do you understand? So climate action as a human right imperative. Climate litigation, victims of climate change increasingly turn to courts to hold governments and corporations accountable because they have responsibility, right? Why that of corporation is social responsibility, government is a responsibility that form its even existence in the first place. Because any government that cannot protect the rights of its people, that government should not be in existence. That government that will not cater for the welfare of its citizenry, that government should not be in existence. You understand? So pe- people can take them to court whenever they feel that they fail in their own responsibility. Do you understand? Do you understand? So it's very, very important. So for example, in the we saw such kind of cases in the Uganda Foundation versus the state of the Netherlands. Took the Netherlands government into to the court to demand for compensation for the suffering the government made them to went through or to go through. Do you understand? So, role of advocacy. Human rights organizations emphasizes the need for climate justice and inclusive policy making, right? So advocates are carrying out advocacy programs to make sure that we receive justice for certain things, right? So global framework sustainable development goals, which is the goals adopted by the United Nations to see that they we improve our standard of living, of course, and then carry everyone along. Do you understand? So insufficient funding is one of the challenges and the barriers for adopting measures in developing countries. Of course, we ask that countries who are well to do, countries who developed nations should pay more, but they are not willing to do so. So it's a challenge. In fact, Trump said that he will reduce the contribution. And he says, in fact, he's, in this is second thing, they say they are going to quit that Paris Agreement. They're not going to be part of it. So you can see what is happening. So lack of political will to integrate human rights into climate policies is also another challenge. And then we have conflict, conflict, um, conflict between economic growth and environmental sustainability are some of the issues that we are looking at here. So let's look at another topic that I want us to discuss, the issue of indigenous rights and environmental protection, right? Indigenous rights and what environmental protection. Indigenous rights and environmental protection. Indigenous rights and environmental protection. So let's say indigenous people are crucial. They are crucial stewards of the environment, right? They manage about 22% of the world's land surface that harbors 80% of global biodiversity. That's including you and me, right? I and you are being managed by indigenous people. However, they face threats from land encroachment, resource extraction, and environmental degradation, making the intersection of indigenous rights and environmental protection critical. Let me give you one critical example. In Abuja, for instance, where we are now, where I am talking to you now, we have the indigenous people who are the Bagis. But do you know what's happened? Some of the Bagi people are homeless in this Abuja. So indigenous people are being displaced. They don't have a house, they don't have a land in this their own land here. This Abuja. Do you understand? So for us, it's not just about climate change issue, but here is human wickedness in the name of development, in the name of federal capital territory. So which kind of federal capital territory plan, development plan that does not include the indigenous people? Why is that your plan does not capture the interests of the indigenous people? And if you must remove them where they are, why can't you make a provision for them in another place? By God's grace, we're going to carry out a thorough analysis and investigation by next year because we are going to go into humanitarian works next year. And we'll start with Abuja people. We'll carry out a very thorough investigation concerning the indigenous people, how they are being affected by what is happening in Abuja here. So whatever developmental plan that government is carrying out, it must include the indigenous people. They have a stake, they have a right. Do you understand? To this land here, to this land, that politicians are grabbing left, right, and doing all manner of things. Do you understand? Yes, we know that some of them sold their land, and when development is coming, they run deep, deep into the bush. But of course, there are people that will be in this place simply because government say it falls within the master plan. So we don't refuse you executing your master plan. That's fine. But what can you do for these people that you are moving in out of his land? Some of them were kicked without any form of support. So indigenous rights. So indigenous people have distinct cultural, spiritual, and economic ties to their ancestral lands. I am not shocked, and I see the reason why the Palestinian people are saying that we have something that is attached to Jerusalem, and we cannot just give it like that. We have some things there, religious site, cultural heritage, and we cannot leave them like that. The Israelis also are saying the same thing. So you can see what we're talking about here. So indigenous people. So key international frameworks. So United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, 2007, recognizes rights to self-determination, land resources, and cultural preservation. So the Israelis are laying claim on on Jerusalem. Palestinians are also laying claim on Jerusalem. And all of them have historical interconnectivity. interconnectedness to their environment, to their land, and that interconnectivity is what is causing the conflict in that place to persist. I get a point now. Article 29, rights to conservation and protection of the environment is there. So the International Labour Organization Convention number 169, 1986, or rather 1989, protects land and resources rights of indigenous people, right? So Convention on Biological Diversity emphasizes the role of indigenous knowledge in biodiversity and conservation, right? So because the indigenous people knows what is within the environment, those species of animals, trees that must be conserved, they know them. And they know the way of preserving and conserving those things. I get a point on, but so you come and take over in terms of development, we encroach those places and then become something else. Do you understand? So the role of indigenous people in environmental protection, traditional knowledge systems. This will have a natural and traditional knowledge of doing it. Forget about your advanced technology and the improved way of handling some of those things. They have the traditional knowledge of doing it in such a way that it's even more better. You understand? So indigenous knowledge contribution to sustainable resources management, such as rotational farming, water conservation. You understand? But the Amazon tribes have agroforestry techniques. It's one of the examples to be considered. Then indigenous fire management practices in Australia to prevent what wildfires. So guardians of biodiversity, guardians biodiversity. So indigenous lands contain rich ecosystems due to low impact practices because they don't use heavy equipment to cultivate or to plant. You understand? They use simple farm implements to cultivate and harvest. So as a result, it has it affects in little way the ecosystem in the area. So protected areas overlap with territories managed by indigenous communities. So, environmental threats to indigenous rights, land encroachment, and resource extraction. That is logging, that is cultivation, that is falling of trees for maybe industrial manufacturing activities, logging, mining, and oil drilling destroy ecosystem and displace indigenous communities. Go to the Niger Delta, you look at oil drilling in the Niger Delta, it will shock you. Many of the farmlands are not plantable. You cannot use them for anything. You cannot cultivate anything. They are just wasting there because of air spillage and all of that. I get a point on. So the environment is totally degraded. And this, of course, is affecting the indigenous people. And that's why the issue of militant activities were very hard because at some point, because they felt that their rights were not protected. And of course, whatever that would have benefited them to be a kind of so be a kind of comfort was also being denied. So they took arm to arm and then begin to, cause so much damage to oil production in the Niger Delta until they were, you know, um, practically being considered by Yar'Adua administration. And of course, at some point, those activities were reduced. Do you understand? So, but not that they have been eradicated completely, they're still there. Oil mongers are still doing their job. Do you understand? Deforestation in Amazon due to illegal logging is also one of the examples. Some of the trees have been, some of the forests have been forestries have been destroyed as a activities of trying to, you know, carry out manufacturing activities, production of books, production of several other activities is affecting some of these things that we're talking about. So, okay, so let's look at climate change. Rising temperatures, sea level rise, and changing weather patterns threaten indigenous livelihoods. Okay, so example, Inuit communities in the Arctic face habitat loss due to melting ice. All right, so these are the issues. Pollution and environmental degradation. Industrial projects contaminate water, air, and oil and soil rather, affecting indigenous health and ecosystem. I give you a practical example in the Niger Delta, so you have seen it. For instance, now if we're in Port Harcourt, for instance, now if we're in Port Harcourt, at some point in time, you see some black particle. If you wash your clothes and dry outside, you see black particles dropping on those clothes. Do you understand? This is as a result of oil extraction. Do you understand? And it affects the health of the people living in those states. Do you understand? Oil spill in Nigeria affecting Ogoni land. This is what I'm talking about. So forced displacement, infrastructure projects and conservation policies such as national parks sometimes leads to eviction of people from their indigenous land, displaying them. If you look at one of the, for those of you that watch one of the simulation training, a topic was being presented on something like this, where a government want to do a park, right, a game reserve like the park also, and then they wanted to take some of the indigenous land. So according to their presentation, a government official was sent to go and talk to the indigenous people, and they refused. They say at some point their land were taken. There was no adequate compensation. But this time around, government was saying that, well, this time around we're taking your land, but we're not just going to leave you like that. We are going to employ your children. We're going to give you jobs, and then you generate revenue. You collect, brings other developmental initiative in the community. I get a point now. So their presentation was perfectly done. If you watch it, if you don't watch it, you can go on. I think it's on our page. You can listen to what they were saying, and they were using their pidgin language in the presentation. So it was a very interesting presentation yesterday. I get a point now. So you can go and watch it and see what they were saying. This is what we're talking about there. Forced displacement. So Maasai people displaced for wildlife conservation in East Africa. Maasai. So if you are from that, I think it should be all those Uganda or Tanzania or other East African countries, Eastern African countries. I think they're Kenya or the rest of it. So if you are from this area, Maasai, maybe I'm not pronouncing it well, I don't know, but it's M-A-A-S-A-I, right? M-A-A-S-A-I, Maasai people, right? So legal and ethical dimensions. So rights to free prayer and informed consent, right? So if you want to do something for that nature, inform the people. I think that's why the government sent people to send someone to inform the community of their intention. So ensure indigenous people have a say in decision affecting their lands and resources, of course. So after so much debate, because in that presentation yesterday, there was so much argument, there was so much issues, indigenous people were protesting and all of that until they were explained, and the explanation convinced them with beyond reasonable doubt for them to release their land for such activities based on the promises of government of giving jobs and of course other developmental activities in the community. I think and then also of protecting them because they were also concerned about wild animals coming to attack them and all of that. And government promised that they are going to guide the place very well and nobody will be harmed. I get a point now. So these are the issues that we're talking about here. You can see that we're doing a lot here. So those people that did that presentation yesterday, they may not understand what they were doing, but you can see how important that presentation can be. And this is why sometimes we talk about simulation training so that we practicalize it, see what it means. Because when you practicalize it, you have a deeper understanding of what that means. I get a point now. So that's it. So lastly, we're going to look at community engagement and participatory methods. What are community engagement and participatory method? So community engagement, that is a collaborative process that involves communities in decision making, planning, and implementation of projects or policies affecting them. So when you are engaging the community, telling them what you are going to do, even though what you are going to do is to benefit them, engage them, because by the time they participate in policy formulation, they can also contribute to that policy implementation. All right, they can take ownership of the policies and then participate actively to make sure that those policies are being implemented. But when you formulate policies and you bring those policies to impose it on them when they did not participate in it, it becomes so difficult to implement it. They frustrate the efforts of the government and anybody concerned with such policies. So participatory methods, tools and approaches used to actively involve communities in problem solving, ensuring their voices are heard and respected. So these are the issues. So key principles: inclusivity, transparency, empowerment, and respect for local knowledge are the issues here. All right. So importance of community engagement. How important uh, is community getting involved in these issues? It builds what trust and foster mutual understanding. That's why you must engage them. It's one way of telling them that we are not here to deceive you, we are not here to harm you. We are here to build your community and make it standardized, and of course generate revenue, and then create recreational sites, and then tourist sites, and generate revenue, and help to develop your community and our state or our country. Again, point out. So it builds trust and what foster mutual understanding. Of course, it ensures decisions are contextually relevant and culturally sensitive, because the community people will be able to tell you the secrets in the community. They'll tell you sites or places that should not be entered, again, should not be touched because of certain cultural and spiritual issues that are involved. Again, so they must be participate. They must be carried along. And let me tell you one story. And sometimes they were constructing a road that passes through my community. Government was carrying out the construction, right? So it got to a place close to my place, right? And then there's one locust being tree, locust, the locust being that tree, right? There was there. So they considered that tree to be an ancestral tree, and the bulldozer wanted to fell the tree. Hey, the tree refused to fall. He refused. The bulldozer tried. The highest he could achieve was that the bulldozer died, just stuck. They brought another bulldozer thinking maybe it was an ordinary stuff. As that one was approaching the tree, it stopped, stuck. They brought another one stuck. So they discovered that this thing was not an ordinary stuff. So they have to engage the community until the conditions were fulfilled. The first bulldozer that stuck was the one that felled the tree, because after the conditions were fulfilled. I get a point now. So community people will tell you, no, 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 not here, not here with this one. So they must be participating. They must be involved. They must be involved. Promote ownership of projects leading to better outcomes and sustainability. No, the reason why projects of politicians are not sustainable, projects that politicians conduct are not experiencing any form of long span, is because people are not being carried along. Politicians will just bring projects and just scatter them where they are not needed. Sometimes those projects are not even needed. It's not the needs of the community. You understand? And then they will cite them anywhere. At the end of the day, community people don't care about it. They don't have any sense of ownership concerning it. And so as a result, they don't care about it. Few days is a borehole destroyed. And you know, few days, electricity, maybe what do you call it? Um, transformer. Transformer, they stole the cables and everything, leaving it so naked. I get the point now because the community people were not carried along, even though the electricity is for their own good. But because they were not carried along, there's no sense of ownership. Do you understand? In my community, there was a transformer that was installed. I get the point now. And the community guys just removed the transformer, whatever cables that were there. For more than 6 months, they have not seen light. You understand? They have to tax the houses, the community people to contribute to buy new cables. Do you understand? But I think they will learn their lessons and then they will take ownership of the issue and make sure that nobody steal the cable again. Do you understand? So these are the issues. So it's very important. Involve community people in projects. They will take ownership of it, protect it, and make sure that it experience uh, a long span in servicing them. All right, it's very important. So addresses power imbalances by giving marginalized groups and a platform to participate. Right. So when everybody's gathered along, all the stakeholders are involved. Even the marginalized group can serve a say. Do you understand? So they have that sense of belonging, and of course, it helps to make the society better. So key elements of effective community engagement, inclusivity. Number one is what? Inclusivity. So engage diverse groups, including women, youth, elders, and marginalized communities. You have to engage them. Let them have all the stakeholders must be carried along. Then nobody should be left behind. If you go and engage only the elders, and if you get the youth, they will one day wake up and destroy the whole stuff. So two-way communication. So foster dialogue rather than one-way dissemination of information. So communicate to them, they communicate to you, tell you what you should know, and then you tell them what they also should know. What's going on? Transparency. Share information openly to build trust and credibility. Effective, what we're talking about effective ways to engage for community engagement, right? So capacity building. Equip community members with the knowledge and skills to participate meaningfully. You can come and provide training for the community people. You want them to intervene in conflict. You want them to mediate in conflict. Go and train them. All right. So we'll be doing community engagement next year very well. So that we engage and train people. I think we were in Southern Kaduna where we train people there. You understand? This year rather. We were in Southern Kaduna where we train people. Community engagement, very important. You want people to promote peace. Train them even in their languages. Let them understand. If they cannot understand English, train them in the language they understand so that they can promote it. You understand? So accountability. Or if you do not know their language, you can speak English. You can find somebody who can interpret and they can understand and go with it. So it ensures stakeholders are answerable to the community for their decisions and actions. So all the stakeholders must be accountable. You understand? They must be accountable for their action and their actions. Very, very important. So let's look at some of the participatory methods. Participatory rural addressers, right? A set of tools used to involve local people in analyzing their situations and planning solutions. Example of PRA tools include Transect Works, so observing and mapping community resources and challenges. Social mapping, visualizing the community layout, resources, and demographics. Seasonal calendars, understanding variations in livelihoods, resources, and challenges over time. So, focus group discussion, small group discussions on specific issues, encouraging diverse perspectives. Community mapping, community members create maps of resources, hazard, or infrastructure, enabling participatory planning. I get a point on. They'll tell you here is no go area. Those places there are dangerous animals there. Or those places there are this thing and that and that. I get a point on. You cannot go there. Community mapping, participatory actions research, collaborative research where community members are co-researchers helping to identify problems and solutions. Storytelling and testimonies are also part of the team that elicits personal experiences to understand community challenges and values. Role playing and simulation, engaging participants in hypothetical scenarios to explore decision making processes. So these are the issues that we're talking about here. Application of community engagement and participatory methods. So urban planning involving residents in designing public spaces for infrastructural projects, natural resource management, health initiatives, disaster risk reduction, right? Participatory hazard mapping and planning for disaster preparedness, education, and all of that. What are some of the challenges that you may see in community engagement? Power dynamics, dominance by elites or exclusion of marginalized voices. It's possible. It's come some elites will just hijack it and then keep it to themselves, and then other voices may not be heard. Time and resources constraints. Of course, we don't have all eternity to do anything. So sometimes time may be a challenge. And of course, sometimes resources may not be enough to carry out such. Cultural barriers, language, norms, or other resistance measures can also hinder participation. Tokenism, tokenism, superficial participation where community input is ignored or undervalued. And then sustainability, maintaining long-term engagement and interest can be challenging. So what are the strategies for effective community engagement? Early involvement, tailored approaches, capacity building, feedback mechanism, monitor and evaluate. So all of these can help to ensure effective community engagement. Ethical consideration, ensure voluntary participation and informed consent. Don't force anybody into it. Don't pay anybody into it. Avoid exploiting community knowledge or resources. Don't exploit them. Just be, because some of you go there because you see opportunity, begin to exploit people, begin to do all manner. Respect local custom, traditions, and leadership structures. Don't go to change their leadership structure. It's not your business. And of course, respect their customs, respect their way of life. You understand? Promote equitable benefits from participatory processes. So these are the things that we need to do, right? So I don't have my hotspot is not connecting to my system, so I will not be able to see your comments. So, but I hope maybe if I go off the line, I see your comments, I'll be able to respond. Most especially maybe it concerns question. But before we go, I say that for those of you that participated in peace and conflict management training, the examination is coming up tomorrow by 9 p.m. GMT plus one. So if it concerns you, you participate in the exams tomorrow. If you miss it, no more second chance. All right. I'm not talking about human rights examination though. I'm talking about a training that we did last month. The people that participated in that training, you know how you get your examination link and write your exams tomorrow. The exam is multiple choice question objectives. All right. So get yourself prepared. And of course, those of you that are joining us from countries like Kenya, Cameroon, Malawi, Lesotho, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Uganda, South Sudan, Liberia, Ethiopia, what do you call it, Sierra Leone, Dr. Democratic Republic of Congo, and then we talk about which the Gambia, Ghana, right? If you're joining us from any of these countries, we are looking for people to represent the institute in your country. So you can do way to apply, but there are conditions for you to fulfill. And one of those conditions for you to become a member of the institute. So thankfully, the online induction is coming up on the 30th of this month. So you can rush to become a member of the institute and then have the opportunity to be selected to be part of those that will represent the institute in your country. The reason why we want you to be a member before you can represent the institute is for you to understand the importance of what membership of the institute means, because it's part of the activities that you'll be doing to mobilize people to be members of the institute in your country and then engage them in peace promotion in your country. I get a point now. So it's very, very important that you must first and foremost be a member so that you understand what membership means. If you are not a member, how will you go and convince somebody to be a member of the institute when you yourself you are not a member? So that's the reason why we are insisting that you must be a member of the institute before you can apply to coordinate or to participate in any of the our activities in your own country. So it's a very important um, consideration. So please, if you are interested, you can send your CV, send your CV, send your document, all right? Your document, your international passport or your national ID card, so that we know that you are a citizen of that country. And then, but if you are a resident person in that country, you must show us your resident permit, so that we'll know that you are resident in that country. Do you understand? So that maybe you are a Nigerian, but you are resident in Cameroon and you want to be part of the team that will be there coordinating the program. For instance, you must show us your resident permit before we consider you. Do you understand? So these are the issues. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. See you tomorrow, 7 p.m. same time. All right. Thank you and enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your song. Bye.